This is they were just had a press conference for the stabbing in Charlotte on the light rail. Um, I didn't I didn't get to it from the beginning, but I'm getting to it live. Let's go.
Yeah, so and obviously we want this case to go as fast as possible to bring justice for the victim's family. That is most likely to be separate tracks because the state system and federal system have different standards, different legal standards, different processes they go through. I told the attorney about this case. We're going to work out the best.
I apologize for ending the live I had before this one so abruptly. Um, I thought that somebody wrecked in front of my house. Thing is, it was just somebody who blew their tire. Thank God they didn't wreck. But with that being said, let's get back to this.
Way for the victims to get this to go forward, whether that's federal going first, state going first, some sort of parallel paths. We'll have to figure it out, but there are definitely challenges to that. And generally, when we bring a federal charge, the state charges are dropped. But this is a case where we have a first-degree murder charge, and we're supplementing with a federal charge, which I think tells you a little bit about the state system, that we can't trust that a first-degree murder charge is going to take someone off the streets for as long as we need them off the streets. We have to supplement with a federal charge. Thank you. I really appreciate you covering this. Thank you.
Strong partnerships created
Okay, what's at the end of it?
All right, folks who've been listening here to this briefing from Charlotte, North Carolina, announcement of an additional federal charge here against the suspect in the Blue Line light rail stabbing from last month. DeCarlos Brown now facing that federal charge of causing death on a mass transportation system. DOJ and FBI saying that there were also some aggravating factors at play here, they say, which we know aggravating factors can make a crime more severe and thus the punishment for that crime more severe. We're seeing Brown now in this federal charge facing the potential, if he's convicted of this, maximum sentence of life in prison or potentially the death penalty in this case. Of course, all of this stemming from that August 22nd stabbing on the Blue Line light rail just before 10 o'clock. We actually just saw, of course, the surveillance video, that young woman, Irina Zarutska, getting onto the light rail train.
We'll be right back in a second.
Directly in front of the suspect in this case, and after about a period of 4 minutes, the surveillance video shows that man taking out a pocket knife and stabbing her multiple times. He was arrested shortly after getting off the train at the next platform. But really seeing that this case is growing in interest nationwide. The Trump administration, in fact, now setting a microscope on this case with the president himself weighing in on it. We also now, of course, just seeing FBI getting involved, announced today the fact that the FBI says that it will lend supplementary assistance to local authorities in their investigation. And quite frankly, seeing officials speaking today, getting emotional. We're told that both the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina, Russ Ferguson, and that special agent in charge with the FBI, we heard from James Barnacle Jr., saying that they met with Irina Zarutska's family from Ukraine just moments before doing this press briefing, saying that they let them know of this new federal charge. They basically, talked about wanting to work with the Ukrainian embassy to get her body back to Ukraine, where she's originally from. So we mentioned before, she came to the U.S., to Charlotte, North Carolina, for a better life and in a safer place, apparently leaving that war-torn area, apparently just living in a bunker before she even came here to the U.S., only to lose her life on the light rail. But they got emotional, saying that when they told about the offer for Ukraine to bring Zarutska's body back to Ukraine, her mother and uncle said, no, we're going to bury her here in the United States. She loved America, and so we want to keep her here. And we saw both men in this briefing today get very emotional. Russ Ferguson saying, quote, no one should sit on the light rail in fear, because if you sit in fear on the light rail, you sit in fear as you walk around our center city. We heard James Barnacle Jr., that special agent in charge, saying that the system has failed us, and he got emotional as well, speaking about how he has daughters, and so he says he feels like he connects to this case with this young woman losing her life. So really much more to see as this investigation continues and develops. They alluded to this fact, which they say is not under their purview really as DOJ and law enforcement, but the fact that apart from the system failures they say that were in place, the fact that the suspect apparently had numerous charges and encounters with various departments and was still on the streets, there's a larger discussion to be had, they say, about, in their words, why are our buses and transit stops homeless shelters is what they called them. They talked about the lack of fair enforcement with cats, which anyone here in the city of Charlotte knows that the fact that while you might buy a ticket to get on the cats by chance, any of the systems, you are not really likely, if ever, to be checked to see if you actually have a ticket to be on a bus or on a train. And we heard several days back when city leaders were having this larger discussion about the stabbing and all of the public safety concerns that the public was bringing forward afterwards, they were essentially saying, we know that this is an issue of fair enforcement. And specifically with this case of DeCarlos Brown, they say that they were able to follow his steps as it led him up to that specific train at that moment, meeting with Irina Zarutska, basically saying that no one ever checked him for a ticket as he was riding various portions of Cats to get to that specific train car. They talked about, the fact that fair enforcement was an issue. So Cats knows this. And we saw the interim CEO, Brent Cagle, talking about how fair enforcement, at least as he sees it, in the system.
That was dirtier than my frat house futon.
What? That was clean!
Try clean. Keep it clean. Not giving you a card, just a tip. Citgo, try clean gas. Keep your engine clean and your ride smooth. Citgo, try clean gas. Keep it clean.
Early cancer detection.
Life-saving, life-changing, life trajectory changing. Like literally the difference between saying, wow, I was having these symptoms, I was able to rectify it. It was a couple checkups and a small biopsy removal, and
attacked if ever attacked. But really interesting to see how this case is developing in the sense that obviously this happened back on the 22nd, and in the days and the weeks that followed, there's been very much a local, robust discussion about what went wrong here, what can be done to make things better, but really now seeing nationwide eyeballs with the release of that surveillance video, the disturbing surveillance video that showed the encounter, essentially this young woman not having really any interaction other than just sitting down in front of this gentleman preceding that deadly attack, the brutality of it, and folks really now starting to kind of get the idea of what happened, stirring a lot of emotions. In fact, we saw, with the federal charges that were announced today, and the folks who were speaking in that briefing we just brought you, they were talking about how this surveillance video caught their eye, and this surveillance video was enough, they said, that they could pursue a federal charge. We heard Russ Ferguson, the U.S. Attorney for the Western District, talking about how you could have cases and cases and cases that are similar in nature, kind of all leading up to one big case. But he said it takes a particular case to get a federal charge because they're very meticulous and they're very, judicious, he says, in how they levy these charges in order to get a successful conviction. And he says that they believe this is that case. This is the case that's going to be the one that kind of speaks for all the other cases. If there were other incidents that needed to be addressed and weren't, or kind of flew under the radar, if you will, this is the one that's getting the attention. They've got the video they feel like shows it, proves their charge that they've levied here, the causing death on a mass transportation system, and this is what they're going to go with. So be sure folks will continue to follow this story as it does do a lot of twists and turns here. We'll just let you know, just for some, planning purposes for yourself. Of course, we're always bringing you the very latest here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus every single day, but we do have multiple interviews lined up throughout the week with a lot of policymakers and big voices, if you will, in policy not just at
And
a
I
local
will
level, but
rewind
statewide
this.
as well. So we're actually set to sit down with some of these folks in the coming days to talk about how they see this case, what they see as potential changes that need to be made. So we hope that you stick with us here throughout the rest of the week and beyond as we're having these discussions all day long and bringing you the very latest, and something that's really sparked a lot of concern and pulled at the heartstrings of a lot of folks nationwide. So with that, we appreciate everyone sticking with us here on Live Impact News, even as we've turned over to the secondary channel. We'll let you know if you want to go back to the main channel here on WCNC Plus. Our 4 o'clock news team is underway with our newscast already in progress, so we encourage you to switch over there, pick up with the evening news. I'll see you at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then of course we'll be back with Live Impact starting at 11 o'clock tonight on the main channel on WCNC Plus, so I'll be with you for that for the next couple of hours starting at 7, and then we'll see you for the news at 11. We know that anything can develop in the next couple of hours, so be sure that we'll keep you updated with that. With that, we'll come to an end here on Live Impact, and once again, move over to the primary channel if you don't mind. Thanks for sticking with us.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and rewind this. Okay, I didn't know this here was known as it was.
Handled, and just, overall, he just has a strong feeling about.
We ask everyone to please continue to keep Liam's family in thoughts and prayers. Liam's
Wait a minute, Liam King was North Carolina too? Wait a minute. Liam King was North Carolina too?
death remains an active investigation. Again, sad update out of Randolph County. The Randolph County Sheriff's Office posting it.
Let me rewind that. Liam King was North Carolina? Hold on, let me check that. I didn't know he was. This is a North Carolina case too. Oh goodness, Asheboro, North Carolina. Yeah, he was North Carolina. Asheboro, North Carolina. Which I will be getting to the Liam King case, but right now I'm on the Charlotte light rail stabbing case right now. Excuse me.
More, and we have more details. We will be sure to share that with you here on WCNC Plus and on WCNC Charlotte. All right, so we want to go and move on to another story that we've been keeping an eye on. It has caused a lot of reaction, not only locally, and not only throughout the state, but across the country. We're talking about the death of 23-year-old Arena.
Time, or how much of a head?
Hold on, y'all. Make sure I get the right thing for y'all. I almost dialed up the wrong thing. Here we go.
So we touched on it at the top of the show, and it's a story that we've been following for weeks now. We're talking about that deadly stabbing on the light rail, the Blue Line. In the wake of that deadly stabbing on Charlotte's light rail, we've gotten so many people, from state lawmakers to city leaders, the folks in the community, also politicians across the country. You heard from House Leader Mike Johnson earlier in the show. President Trump has reacted. The White House sent out a statement yesterday. So much reaction towards this stabbing. It brings up so many topics when you talk about safety, when you talk about bail reform, when you're talking about crime, just a lot of things in the pie here. So we're continuing to follow this story. WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre is continuing to follow the story at every angle. Jesse, so many things at play. I know you're following up when it comes to safety, and you talk to some local leaders. What are they saying? What are they saying, and what are you following today?
Well, I'm right outside of the East-West Boulevard station stop where this tragic incident happened. Again, Irina Zarutska, whose life was tragically taken here, and Carlos Brown was arrested for this crime and charged with murder. Following this incident, there's been national coverage of this. There's been a lot of outrage locally, statewide, and so forth in regards to safety and security. There are questions about gaps in the mental health system. There's questions about, the judicial system and why Carlos Brown, who does have a long criminal history background, why he was still out on the streets, especially when he's being evaluated for another case when it comes to his mental competence and so forth. Now, yesterday, Mayor Vi Lyles made a post saying that there were some immediate steps that were going to be taken in regards to safety and security, deploying a stronger presence on platforms and to increase fair enforcement. Now, throughout the day today, we were earlier in Uptown in the main CAT station and so forth. So we did see police stationed out there. We did see more guards in and around the area. Some folks I spoke to say they saw some extra security. Some felt like the same. Now we're here at the East-West station. When we got here, 2 CMPD officers did get on the rail line that was here. So it looks like they're riding the trains, and that is one of the things that folks are saying, right? It's nice to have security and police stationed outside of these different station stops or the center in Uptown. However, they want to see more security, more officers riding the actual rail line, riding the buses in here, and that is what would make them feel more secure. Now, I did speak to some local city leaders, and overall, that is kind of the feeling. They want to continue to push that. They want to see more security efforts when it comes to making sure that folks know they are taking this seriously, and that is their priority when it comes to making sure Charlotte is safe and riders are safe and staff that work for CATS is safe. Now, when it comes to some city leaders I spoke to, some are calling out Mayor Lyles and her comments saying that she has not been, and other city leaders have not been proactive enough or strong enough or aggressive enough in taking care of a bigger problem, but in reference to this and further safety issues throughout the city and on CATS rail line. Of course, we also have the sales tax and the red line on the line, and so there's a lot of talk about, making sure that the CATS, that the folks feel safe and confident about public transit so that they can support, the sales tax and so forth. So, we'll just kind of see again where things go from here. As of today, again, I did see some additional police over here. I did see some extra guards at the other stations and so forth, just like Mayor Lyles mentioned, would be deployed, and we'll just kind of have to see how consistent that is. And one thing that was mentioned to me was it comes down to funding, right? We need money to make sure to be able to keep this extra level of security and guards and police and so forth to make sure this happens. And that's what we're kind of focused on. I'll have a story later today, and you'll hear from local city leaders on their thoughts about the actions that are being taken. Nick?
Hey, Jesse, before I get you out of here, one quick question, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're speaking with Tart Bakari, former city councilman, also was within the Trump administration up until about a week ago.
So I spoke to Malcolm Graham earlier, who's a city councilman now, and then I also spoke to a former city councilman, Tariq Bakari, as well. And, you know, he shared some outrage with how things are being handled, and just, you know, overall, he just has a strong feeling about the city and city leaders need the need for them to be tougher on crimes in general, and for folks to stop pointing the finger and really look at themselves to say what can they do to fix the situation on their part. And if everyone does their part, then there could be some progress there. Nick?
Jesse Pierre, following all things regarding the story. Quite frankly, again, you can catch Jesse at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock this evening, and so much information on our digital platforms. Jesse, thank you for your time.
The high quality
and before I forget about it, they just had a press conference, which I showed the last little bits and pieces of. Federal charges are to be filed, I believe, later on this evening or tomorrow. Don't quote me on that one yet. We're gonna get into the press conference. This will take a while. So, if you're cooking dinner, go ahead, cook your dinner. You know, do whatever you gotta do. If you're at work, please, I don't mind you listening, but please do not watch until your work day is over with. With that being said, let's get into this. One second. One second, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
This is not a scam. If you are an American over the age of 63 on Medicare, you can apply for...
Speed this up a little bit.
Story continues to evolve and continue to get updates. We continue to get statements, reaction, especially after that video was put out on Friday. But again, just in the state's auditor's office, and this just came into our newsroom, the state auditor's office is now investigating Charlotte area transit system, aka CATS. So here's what they say in the statement. Amid serious public safety concerns, North Carolina office of the state auditor will investigate the Charlotte area transit system. The investigation will focus on the public safety aspects of CATS, including, but not limited to, private security contracts, metrics, and data used by CATS in private security for public safety purposes, and the CATS safety and security budget. So this is a statement. I want to read off the statement from State Auditor Dave Bullock. He says, quote, "One of the most basic duties a government owes the people is public safety. The recent lawlessness and violence that have taken place on Charlotte's public transportation raises serious questions about the security measures in place. We will investigate CATS and examine its public safety contracts and operations." Charlotte has, and then I want to read more of this statement from the state auditor's office. Charlotte has faced a string of violent incidents recently on public transportation. In March, a 64-year-old veteran was attacked on a CATS bus, but according to his family, he became paralyzed from the neck down as a result of the attack. Months later, in August, a 57-year-old veteran was hospitalized after being attacked by multiple people on a CATS bus. Just days after that, a repeat offender, who had previously been in prison for robbery with a deadly weapon, stabbed and killed a woman on Charlotte's light rail.
And mind you, the guy that did the stabbing, he already in Mecklenburg County alone had 12 different mugshots. 13 different mugshots for Charlotte, Mecklenburg County alone. Why was this guy out terrorizing the community?
Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles Metropolitan Transit Commission leadership and CATS leadership have been notified of the investigation, which will begin immediately. Additionally, the Office of the State Auditor special report on the City of Charlotte's payment to the Chief of CMPD will be released this week. So they've given us news on a couple of different fronts. Again, I want to reiterate, I just read the full statement from the State Auditor's Office regarding their investigation into CATS after that deadly stabbing from August 22nd. At the bottom of that statement, they also said they will release more into their findings.
Sorry I have paused it. Shout out to WCNC for this. One more time. Shout out to WCNC for this information.
Their investigation into the City of Charlotte's payment to the chief, to CMPD's chief of police, the police chief. And that will come this week. So I just want to point that out because it's also a story we've been following here extensively here on WCNC Charlotte and on WCNC Plus. All right, so let's take a couple of minutes to step away for a minute. Let's take a 2-minute break. We'll be back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus again in 2 minutes.
Let me speed this up a little bit.
Charlotte's payment to the chief.
Had to deal with. When I was flying satellites as a young officer, we were worried about space weather, not combat attrition. Now we're worried about combat attrition. How do we continue to provide these capabilities in the...
Anyone I'm looking for.
We don't ever have to pay anything when we go to court, and that is not true in North Carolina. There are systems in place where
this
you have
castle
to
is spelled.
pay for something depending on your charges. It's not like, you're a free man. You get to go, basically. And some other states have different rules, and so in North Carolina, we do run on a money bail system. However, there are 5 statutes that judges go off by, and they take a lot into consideration. But let's just go through these. One is on a written promise that you will appear. Now, written promise does not mean you have to pay. It means you don't have to pay money. You just have to agree that you will show up to court for your first appearance. So someone gets arrested, they go to first appearance, they say, yes, I'll appear in court, and then you're let go back on the street.
Okay.
Number 2 is an unsecured bond. So that means after the fact, right? So a judge says, okay, you're on an unsecured bond of $2,000. If you don't show up to court, then you'll have to pay $2,000, but you don't have to pay it up front.
Okay.
So if you don't show up to court, then you have to pay $2,000. The third one is placing a person in someone else's custody or an organization's custody. The fourth one is property or money. So basically you could say, like, here's my mortgage, I'm doing my mortgage for, or you could take my car, basically, if I don't show up to court, like the police can come, that sort of thing. And then the fifth one is electronic monitoring system. So you can be on house arrest until you have to go to court. So with that being said, looking at his in January, the 911 calls, the judge did release him on a written promise to appear. So he did not have to pay any money.
Okay. And I'm looking at it with you as well.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So he did not have to pay any money. And, Monty says there are a few things that we need to remember because it's very easy for us to be like, oh my goodness, how could you let this person go? He does have a long history. They should take that into consideration if it's a danger to people. Now, you don't even have to give them a bond. You could say you're a danger to people. You need to be locked up until then. However, this is not, I'm not talking about his case in general. If you're jaywalking 15 times, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, the thing is how much it costs for taxpayers to keep people in these jails, our resources, our, sheriff's department, do we have enough guard? Like, all of that they take into consideration, these judges, and they see tons and tons of people every single day. And so, Gary says that maybe they don't have enough time to go through these cases, look at all of the rap sheet. I mean, obviously they probably glance at it, right? But if someone's calling 911 a bunch of times, you're not necessarily a danger to society, meaning you're not doing anything aggressive to somebody else. Now, he did have aggressive charges in his past, so that is something that judges should be looking at and all of that. But
and I believe it was robbery with a dangerous weapon, possession of a firearm. But back in 2014.
Yeah, back in 2014, which he actually did go to jail for. So there are these in place because not everybody can afford $1 million bond, and we also have to realize that our judicial system is innocent until proven guilty. So that being said, it's like if we're just throwing everybody in jail and waiting for their court date, which is so backed up anyways and taking so long, that's kind of the process of like, who is the worser of two evils, right? So judges are really taking into consideration what they need to do and what they can give to people. 911 calls, this was a written promise to appear. That's sort of how this has been explained. And, it is causing a lot of questions to our judicial system and what we're doing because of his past history and all of that. So, but North Carolina does run on a money bail system. There are methods in place though that would allow somebody to get out without paying money, but those are supposed to be non-aggressive things. So,
and what we're learning, this is a nuanced situation.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about so many different things, and like you were saying with this, for example, cashless bail, it's collateral.
Right.
That's put up in some of these situations, and again, it's just it's just not as easy as blaming one
right.
thing.
It's really not black and white, and two, also judges need to look at, if they have kids and they're in jail, can anyone watch them? Do they have to get, social services involved? Like, there's a caveat of a lot of things that go into it, and so, and Gary Monty made a point too, which was interesting to me because you don't think about it, but he was like, these judges live here as well. They don't want dangerous criminals out on the street because their kids go to school. They're out in the community. They're riding the light rail, And so it is something to like take a breath on and think about all of the things that go into place and do things need to be worked on? Absolutely, I think, in everything, right? So, but yeah, that is how the system works in North Carolina as of now.
Interesting stuff. When can, I always ask you this, when can folks check out the story?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You definitely, and it's definitely worth your time to check this story out because, again, you hear the term cashless bail, it's used as a political talking point.
Sure.
And there is some confusion, a lot of confusion about it.
Oh, absolutely. And it is confusing because you're like, wait a second, this is cashless bail though, because he's just written it up here. So it is, I will agree with everybody, it's super confusing.
Yeah.
But there are like laws in place that are there, to not make it so difficult for somebody if it's a petty crime or they're actually innocent. I mean, because think about it, if you have a person who does something and it's going to be $1 million for you to get out or 100,000 and then you're innocent the whole time, that can ruin your whole entire life, right? So we also have to think on that as well before we want to change all of these things. So
as a trickle down effect.
it is, yeah. So it's definitely just food for thought.
can catch Meg at 5 p.m. Meg busy. She stepped in early here in the studio, and that's because she's working on another follow-up regarding. We won't give it away, but she's working.
But I'll probably be here tomorrow.
You'll probably be here tomorrow.
About it, yeah.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of important information that I've been getting questions about. I'm sure you've been getting questions about.
We get questions about.
We all have questions about. So we're learning this sort of in real time as we're reporting this stuff. Meg, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. So we have a couple things happening live, but what do we want to do, Carlene? Do we want to? Yeah, let's check in on the forecast. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm sure you're making those Tuesday plans, maybe some dinner plans, maybe. I don't know. But if you are, I think you're in luck today. Let's check in with Majestic, start with our full forecast.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and boy, have we been spoiled with picture-perfect weather. Not only have we got to enjoy beautiful blue skies and sunshine, but that nice...
Well, not immediately clear what the news this afternoon. That deputies say a 7-year-old boy with special needs was found dead after 3 days of search efforts. Let's take you back now to that press conference. I believe we got that shot back up, James.
In that area, until we started walking, and you would find ponds located here and there. Looking at GIS, it gives you a better understanding of just how many farm ponds are in Randolph County. Quite a few.
And hearing this from some people in the community who were saying that they were frustrated that they weren't able to go out and help search, can you just help us inform our viewers of why it was so important that it was law enforcement led?
As I stated in the last press conference, the best thing they could do to help the citizens was to check their own property in that area. And, this limb was found on someone else's property. We did not want people that were not trained to come in and tamper with evidence, even disrupt evidence that could be used for further investigation down the road if we needed it. And that would, you've got people that are untrained that don't know really what to look for. And that's why we had trained individuals go out initially and look at all the possible places he could possibly be.
What kind of evidence were you looking for?
Anything in this type case, from clothing, lost shoe, just any indication of the direction in which you may have been traveling.
I know it's still early in this investigation, but could we expect charges against the boyfriend?
We will have to, we're at the very beginning of the investigation, and we will have to look at everything, take all the evidence for the district attorney, and go from there. It's too early to say.
There's a program called Project Lifesaver that's implemented in Lee County. It provides bracelets to kids who have cognitive impairments to for ways to be able to track them. Is that something you guys possibly implement in the future, or plan to implement something like that in case this does occur in the future?
That would be very helpful to us. We have that same program with dementia patients here in Randolph County, and it would be very helpful. We'd lead us straight to that person. And Liam was not subject to doing this, on a consistent basis. So I don't know if he would be eligible, or I guess we wanted to have a bracelet. I could see where if a child does that quite often, it would help us quite a bit in finding and locating that person.
And how would you go about implementing a program like that in the future?
we would look at it, you know, the first thing is knowledge. I want to get someone to come in and talk to us about, I learned a lot, and we all learned a lot.
This here right now is about Liam King, but I will do a separate live stream just on Liam King. I'm not gonna fast forward through this since because I didn't know that Liam King was out of North Carolina as well. So this here will be an update on Liam King and on the Charlotte stabbing as well. So I'm basically hitting two birds with one stone. Let's get back into it.
It's about, I learned a lot, and we all learned a lot about dealing with the cognitive decline, the person who we think is slow, but they're really not slow.
He was
they're
just
smart.
autistic.
And, you know, we will learn as much as we possibly can about the condition he had. And there's a program that is circulating in the state of North Carolina now that offers that, and we're talking neighboring sheriffs about having that program come to us and where we could sit down and learn more about autism.
Who is this person?
I do not know.
Do you know if his father is involved in any way in his life? Or was he?
I think he is, yes.
Have you spoken to the family? How would they?
They're, you know, tore up. As you might imagine, the mother is, she was out there every minute of that search time, and she's doing as any mother would do, coping with it minute by minute. And just pray for her, pray for the family, and pray for these people behind me. You know, they're the ones that pulled him out of the pond. They're the ones that had to put aside their normal daily activity of being with their family to deal with this. They're the heroes that I look up to each and every day.
Was he found on the edge of the pond or within the pond?
It was near the edge. And we had checked that pond before, initially, and there was nothing, we did not get body.
That was my next question actually, was there any evidence that maybe he had been wandering around these past few days and then just ended up there, or did it seem like maybe they'd been there the whole time?
It appeared to our investigators that he went to the first pond that we tracked him, the GPS, the phone, and then went down a main logging road, and that logging road ended up at this pond. And, you know, that was a tenth of a mile from the house, approximately 700 feet, maybe a little over.
So you're saying he had a phone on his person?
He had a phone, but it did not operate a lot of the times. We did try to use it, the technology that we have to ping his location, and we utilized that to put us at the first pond. That's why that first pond first to look at and search.
So to clear up some confusion, the investigation online, whenever you learned of his disappearance, you saw the GPS where he was located, you started at the pond, correct?
We started in the house where he originally was, and we searched every bit, and then we continued outside and did a perimeter search of the outside, and it led us to the pond.
you have a final message for our viewers?
And I just want to say that thank you for your support. Randolph County citizens, they're the best, and I want to thank these men and women behind me for putting their family to the side and going to help someone else's family. That's what it's all about. Just continue to pray for the King family because they will need it.
Can I ask you, you mentioned that it was Brooklyn County. Of course, they're Brooklyn County, they're not close to here. Was there something about the expertise of the technology that brought to that helped make that decision?
No, I don't think it had anything to do with the expertise. That was their next area to search. And, I think anybody trained in search and rescue would have found the body.
Can you confirm, was the mom, boyfriend, and the father of Liam part of the search efforts, and were there any other family members?
We communicated with them throughout the search. But as far as them participating in it, no.
You did not have a history of water.
No.
You know what the boyfriend was doing at the time that he was at the house?
That will be part of our investigation.
Can you share more just about, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but just curious about the other jurisdictions that came in, what kind of resources they were able to bring in? I know there were some dive teams, different things like that. Can you just kind of elaborate on that?
We had technology from drones, airplanes. We had SBI airplanes. We had our airplane that we have. We have helicopters. Highway Patrol had their helicopter. Brunswick County brought their helicopter. We had infrared sonar for underwater rescue. And dive teams from all around the state, search and rescue teams. And is there anything else? But we had an outpouring of support. And, my phone is loaded with messages. Just come and help. And, when something bad happens in communities such as this, it brings the community together. Going out and trying to help this family with their problem, and that's what it's all about.
Do you know what time he actually went missing to when you got the call that he had been missing?
That's still in the investigation phase of it.
Talk about lessons learned. I know a lot of people on the resources coming in. What throughout this experience, the sheriff's department partners, what equipment did you think would have benefited your services like it did? Anything equipment that didn't work? Like in general, for certain risks, what did you like to do?
Well, Scott, the first thing is phone service in that area. We had none. And we had to get with emergency operations, state emergency management, and they helped us with the system that is used. We used out west some time ago for phone service. We're in the process of purchasing that here, I think, with Randolph County Emergency Management. We just haven't received it yet. We acted with, I guess, the best way we could with the phone service being the way it was, and we quickly got it up and working much quicker than I thought we would. And, but working with the state and federal folks, they said we did a great job. We don't do this but once every 4 or 5 years, and it seemed like we didn't have any bad critiques from it, other than not locating Liam before he went to the pond.
The state resources, was that first net you were responding, you were referring to?
It was
FirstNet, Starlink, and Verizon. Did your Viper resources work out? Did you bring up any Viper interoperability to help with that? We did, but I think Captain Grady could probably speak to that.
Kevin Grady, Randolph County Emergency Management. So we did bring in a specialist that is trained through the state North Carolina Emergency Management System to help deal with communication issues, failures, shortcomings. So he, through Chatham County, brought some equipment, a trailer, some cellular data equipment, and Starlink equipment to boost what we could in that vicinity. As the sheriff said, the site presented a lot of issues with connectivity, and we did the best we can by bringing in that resource. Emergency management, our goal is to bring in resources that we don't have currently or that we need in other mutual aid departments or other state agencies might have. So the liaison is the emergency management, working closely with the sheriff's office, helping identify needs of the responders on scene and getting those here as quickly as possible. That was very effective. In this case, from manpower to equipment to food, the process worked very well.
Sheriff, you mentioned the emotional side of this, and I'm just wondering what kind of support is available for those responders and volunteers who kind of invested themselves emotionally in this and this unfortunate tragic outcome.
Back in 2018, when I started as a sheriff here, we started a peer support team, which is a group of individuals that are trained and also work alongside you day to day, that can counsel you, that can look and see if there's any inconsistencies with your behavior after seeing something like this or experiencing something like this. So we're here helping each other, and that will continue throughout the next year, I'm sure. This is one of the longest search and rescues we've ever had here in Randolph County.
Do we think that he would have been found sooner if the service was better out there, since he did have the phone on him? Do we know if that was like an issue with him?
You know, I don't think the phone service played a huge part. We were there, we would have done, and even if we had grade A phone service, we would have done what we did initially. And I don't think it would play a part, no.
Just to get some clarification, had that pond that he was found in, had that already been searched?
Yes, it had. We had went around it and used sticks along the side, and we did not locate the body. Any other questions? I want to thank you personally. I know y'all spend a lot of time down there. I appreciate it, and anytime you deal with the death of a child, you've got to handle it very tactfully, and you guys did, guys and girls did a great job doing that, so thank you.
All right, so that is a press conference from the Randolph County Sheriff's Office that just wrapped up there. Again, we got the news this afternoon, and they confirmed it here in this press conference and gave updates on the search efforts. But deputies have said a 7-year-old boy with special needs, you see right there on your screen, Liam King, was found dead after a 3-day search. Deputies confirmed that news again this afternoon. We broke it. Live Impact News. The body of Liam King was found shortly after 10 a.m. in the pond searching near his home on Forest Hills Drive in Asheboro. So again, we just got those updates from officials there in Randolph County. They also mentioned that Brunswick County helped out in the search efforts as well. A sad update to this story. All right, so let's take a 2-minute break. We'll be back in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
The goal isn't to just willy-nilly say you can't do this.
Office. We want to go to our Julie Kay's reporting as she has looked into the political impacts, because we've seen in the wake of not only the stabbing but also, as we mentioned, kind of the heightened scrutiny that we're seeing this week. More and more political leaders, community leaders coming forward, making statements, in some cases calling for change. Let's listen into her reporting from this week.
Starting now, Blue Line stops like this will look different. Mayor Vi Lyles announcing on X Monday evening that CAT security personnel will be redeployed for a stronger presence on platforms and to increase fare enforcement. CMPD will also increase patrols at key areas across the transit system. But for some riders, the damage is already done.
Unfortunately, now I don't think I will ever step foot on the train again.
DeCarlos Brown is charged with stabbing Irina Zarutska to death last month. The attack was random and unprovoked. Brown had a long criminal record and did not have a valid ticket to ride the night of the incident. Mayor Vi Lyles says in part, quote, "This was a tragic failure by the courts and magistrates. Our police officers arrest people only to have them quickly released, which undermines our ability to protect our community and ensure safety. We need a bipartisan solution to address repeat offenders who do not face consequences for their actions and those who cannot get treatment for their mental illnesses and are allowed to be on the streets."
My understanding is that it's a homeless person with a long track record. It'd be better to have policies that prevent someone like that from even happening in society in the sense that they're taken care of.
Lyles says there will also be more safety initiatives rolling out in the next few weeks, including adding nearly 30 personnel to CAT's security team. Later this month, City Council will vote on increasing the authority of that system.
All right, and with that, as we are watching in our small box here in the bottom right, that podium, we're waiting to see folks take to that to give this DOJ and FBI update. We're actually just hearing, we heard it over our microphones just a moment ago. It sounds like those folks, those officials are meeting right now, we heard, with family. We don't know which family. We presume, since this is all centered around that deadly attack of Irina Zarutska, that it could be her family. And as we told you before, she's a young woman who actually came to the United States, specifically to Charlotte, to start a new life in what she thought was a safer place. She came from Ukraine, of course, a war-torn area where she was seeking a better life here, and sadly lost her life there on the CAT's Blue Line. We have, of course, a lot of reaction, but also a lot of dialogue about solutions and what can be done next. And we know, quite frankly, and we heard this in the CAT's discussion, as there have been a lot of transit and transportation dialogues with city leaders lately already, not just regarding this incident, the specific CAT stabbing, but also we know there's been a lot of larger discussions about the future of transit here in Charlotte, and we know that 1 cent sales tax has been a dialogue. So there have been some meetings centered around that, but the larger dialogue that we're seeing, okay, I'm just hearing from our producer, they're about 1 minute away, by the way, so hang tight with us here on Live Impact. We're going to take you to that press briefing just as soon as it happens, really it's just moments away. But where I was going with it was there were some solutions that were being discussed, and fair enforcement, that is one thing that we saw come to the forefront. The potential, use of more law enforcement presence or security presence, which we already know has kind of been stepped up already in the wake of the stabbing. And we know that the city here is specifically looking at other areas, other cities where they have mass transit to see what they're doing and whether they're having more success on the front here of public safety. And we can't forget the larger dialogue too about mental health, which has been drawn into this case, and the fact that we know that as of several days ago, the suspect in this case, Mr. Brown, had been undergoing competency hearings to see whether he was mentally fit to stand trial for the charges he's facing. So you can see there at the bottom right corner of your screen that podium, which we expect at any moment U.S. Attorney's Office to take, and also FBI. Once again, Russ Ferguson is who we're told we're specifically going to hear from, the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of North Carolina, and James Barnacle Jr., who's Special Agent in charge with FBI in North Carolina. And I know we talked a lot about some of the recent developments today. Also worth mentioning as well the fact that the FBI, as we mentioned, their participation in the announcement, this briefing today, did talk about just today how it's been keeping a close eye on this case. And so we will wait to see what they're saying, a federal enforcement action that's going to be announced today related to this deadly stabbing from last month on Charlotte's light rail. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and check in quickly here.
Okay.
I know we're about, probably at this point, seconds away. I don't know if we want to bring in any more context here, Jeb, but I know we're just kind of waiting to see if there's, we kind of touched on the fact with Julie's piece that there's been a lot of political reaction lately. We've got the governor weighing in. This was just, just this week. And you can see a statement put out on social media saying, quote, "I'm heartbroken for the family of Irina Zarutska." We're actually going to pivot away. It looks like we've got officials now taking to the podium. Let's listen in right now as DOJ announces federal enforcement related to this deadly attack.
Zarutska spoke with her mother, spoke with her uncle, had a very touching call with them. Our hearts go out to Irina's family. They are suffering like any of us would be. It was a very touching call. Our hearts go out to them. She was a refugee. She literally came to the United States from a bomb shelter in Ukraine to escape the war, and she was going about her day. She was coming home from work on a light rail train, like all of us do all the time, and she was brutally murdered. As a native of Charlotte, I'm so sad to say that our city has gotten to this place. I was born here, I grew up here. I remember when the light rail was built. I remember the development it spurred, I remember the excitement. And to think now that you can't even feel comfortable riding that train hits me deep. The light rail brought this city access to jobs, access to education. People could take the train to college. It really was and this incident has really, really injured that. Now, the Carlos Brown Jr., who we allege stabbed Irina Zarutska, is in state custody on first-degree murder charges. But I'm here today to announce that we're going to supplement those state charges with federal charges. These federal charges will go alongside the murder case in state court, and we hope that they will ensure justice for Irina, for her family, and for the whole Charlotte community. The charge we are bringing is in Title 18, which is the criminal code, section 1992A7, which is the law that Congress passed really for this situation. It is an act of violence on a mass transportation system. It is a law that is there because acts like this affect the American way. It affects our daily life. It is random acts on a train that are how we get to our cities, to work, to our places of education, to our families. It is our way of American life. Crime makes people stop taking that light rail. They give up those opportunities, and we are here to be sure that we can save our city and bring those opportunities back. The maximum penalty for this federal crime is life in prison without parole or the death penalty. Of course, each individual case receives its own sentencing hearing by a federal judge that will decide the sentence based on the individual factors in this case. Of course, at this point, we're only making allegations. We do have a charge. We filed a criminal complaint. It has been signed by a federal judge. The charges have been brought, but they are just charges. Getting there has been a process. I want to thank the FBI, which has an incredible team that has investigated this case. They've ensured we had a basis for federal charges. I want to thank the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department that started this investigation, apprehended the defendant immediately after the incident happened at the light rail station. And I want to thank the District Attorney's Office and Spencer Merriweather, who brought first-degree murder charges right away when this happened. I think everyone knows the facts of this case, but I will briefly recitate what is in our criminal complaint. And that is that at 9:55 on August 22nd, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department responded to a call that there had been a stabbing on a light rail train. They located the victim, who had been suffered stab wounds in her neck, on her hand. They found a pocket knife on the scene, and they apprehended the defendant at the rail stop. Now, much more recently, the surveillance video was obtained from the train, and that's really what gave us the basis for federal charges here. And the surveillance video shows Irina Zarudska getting on the train by herself in her work uniform, sitting down by herself in a row that just happened to be in front of the Carlos Brown Jr. Approximately 4 minutes later, Mr. Brown pulled out a pocket knife. You see him on video open that pocket knife, and he stabbed her 3 times in the neck. He then walked off the train with blood dripping from the knife. This is obviously a horrible, horrible situation. But this is why federal statutes exist. They exist to take care of situations like this because no one should sit in fear when they sit on the light rail. If you sit in fear on the light rail, you sit in fear when you walk around the streets of our center city, like I do every day. You sit in fear when you go to our parks, like I do with my daughter every weekend. You sit in fear at our sporting events, our entertainment venues, at concerts, at restaurants, at our museums. These are all the things that we have worked as a city so hard to build. We built this city. Companies have come here in droves. More than 150 people move here every day. We built a city that people want to live in. But we can lose that all if we allow violent crime like this to go on in our streets. And I'm here to tell you, the federal government is going to save our city from that. To Ernest's family, we will pursue justice. We will use the full weight of the law. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate your attention to this case. I know this has gotten national attention. I know that there is a lot of thoughts about this case. There's policy decisions being made because of this case. But as someone who just talked to the family of the victim, I hope you remember her. Because this is hard for them. It's their case, and we will bring justice here. I'll now turn it over to Special Agent Charlie Park.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Thank you for everyone that's here today. I'm saddened to be up here today talking about a violent, heinous act that occurred on our metro system. This could have happened to any young person that was riding the train that night, but it didn't. It happened to Irina, and her death is an absolute tragedy. There's no one who will debate that point. Even more tragic, she chose to come to Charlotte to escape the violence of her war-torn home in Ukraine. Irina had settled into our community. She made friends. She immediately got a job. The first day she was allowed to work, she got a work permit here. She got a job that very first day. She worked at a senior citizen center. She worked in she took care of animals in the neighborhood. She was building her young life. She recently moved in with her partner. Her family let us know she graduated from college in Kyiv with a degree in art and restoration. We don't know the extent of what obstacles she faced in Ukraine, other than we did learn just a few moments ago that she was living in a bomb shelter. Sadly, everyone saw in surveillance video how tragic her life ended. We're shocked, we're saddened. It's very, very difficult. This young lady rode that train many times. She was probably tired after a long day at work and just trying to get home to her loved ones, but she never made it. In an instant, her life was over, and her mother, her father, her siblings, her brother and sister, and her other family and friends, their lives will never be the same. As you heard from U.S. Attorney Ferguson, we spoke with Ernest's mother, Anna, and her uncle just a few minutes ago, and we told them of the federal charges brought against DeCarlos Brown Jr. We hope this additional charge will help bring them a measure of justice and accountability for this horrific act. I want to thank our partners, Chief Jennings and the CMPD. We work every day with this police department. We co-locate agents and officers and detectives from the police department on our violent crimes and safe streets task forces. This is not a policing problem. CMPD is out there every day protecting our streets. You may not know how close we are to the police departments, but throughout this state, our partnerships with local police departments and state departments are critical to the work that we do. The task force partnership is a force multiplier. CMPD and other local partners work closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office, this office, to assess whether local and state cases are appropriate to charge federally. We are pleased to supplement the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's work on this investigation and the appropriate federal charges that were brought forth today. The FBI will work tirelessly to hold violent offenders accountable. Kash Patel, director of the FBI, has empowered every field office to shift resources to violent crime to help keep our city's streets safe. We will continue to work with U.S. Attorney Ferguson, the Department of Justice under the direction of Attorney General Pam Bondi, and the FBI Director Patel to pursue justice for Irina and her family and for the people of Charlotte. In closing, Mr. Ferguson mentions this. The system has failed us in this case. There is no doubt. Everyone deserves to go about their daily lives, to get to work, to get to school, just across town without the fear of being attacked. We should live in a country and in a city where accountability, if you're convicted for a violent crime, is always paramount. Well, thank you, and I think we'll take questions.
Yeah, I want to add one thing. Before we take questions, I want to add one thing that I hope the family won't mind me sharing. But after Irina's death, the embassy in Ukraine called and said, we'll help you bring her home. And her family said no. They said she loved America. We're going to bury her here. So I think we can give her an America to be proud of. As Mr. Barnacle said, something here is broken, and we're here to fix it. We're happy to take your questions. Right, yeah.
In terms of state movement, just talk a little bit more about that conversation. Where was the question? So talk about that conversation. What was the family's reaction to the new charges? And because not a lot of people have actually spoken to the families. Can you talk more about the conversation?
Sure, and we were both there for the conversation, so you can add what you want. It was a very heavy conversation. We talked to her mother, we talked to her uncle. Her mother speaks very little English. We had a translator from the FBI there. And they wanted to talk about their daughter. That's what we talked about. Yes, ma'am.
Casey Jones from WCC. Special Agent Barnacle, you mentioned that this was not a policing failure. Where exactly did this system fail?
It's hard to say. This man was charged 14 times. There's been numerous encounters with police departments. He was arrested by the CMPD in January, but he's still on our streets. So we'll have to figure this out, right? This is not a problem the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office can solve. We can work cases. We can react to crime. We can be proactive and try to prevent crime. Look, I think, President Trump's spoken about this case in the last few days, and he has daughters. I have daughters. So it really hits close to home, right? And why do we have people, whether there's mental health issues or violent crime issues, why are they on the streets? Why are our buses, our trains, our transportation systems almost homeless shelters or mental health shelters? We need to fix that. We need to clean that up. We can only do so much. This is going to take a lot more work from society, from the people in power and the politicians. It's not something I can solve. But we can work cases. and we can bring people to justice.
Hunter?
Maybe this first off, Troy was speaking very quickly after the state side. I just wonder why it took this office 2 weeks to
Yeah, well, federal charges are usually slower than than state charges to begin with. I mean, the federal system is the first line of defense. They charge our violent crimes, like murders, things like that. The federal system is really for repeat offenders, the worst of the worst. And in reality, the fact pattern here screams of a state crime. I mean, there was no gun used here. This was a knife case. There really is not a natural federal crime here. The federal crime we have is because it happened on a light rail system, and because Congress has decided that is essential to society. So we took the time to find that statute, do some research on that statute, make sure that we had the allegations and the facts to support that statute. And like most of our cases, we make sure our cases are pretty airtight before we bring them. And this was actually quite fast for us. We will sit on cases for months sometimes to make sure that we are successful once we bring them. Yeah.
but that would have happened in trying to take over the train or threaten other people, like personnel on the train. There is a federal charge for injury with intention to hit on outside. It's a different statute. I just wonder how strong is this charge?
Yeah, well, so it is a broad statute, and part of the statute came out of 9/11, and some of it is meant for hijacking a train or things like that. But we're charging A7, subsection A7, aggravating factors, subsection B1, which are exactly for this situation. They are for when there's a passenger on the train and you do an act of violence on the train. And the reason for that is because hijacking a train is obviously a terrible thing that disrupts society, but making it so no one can ride the train or is too scared to ride the train is about the same threat. It's a terroristic act to make people afraid to go about their daily lives. That's what terrorism is, and that's why this statute is completely appropriate here. Now, this is a criminal complaint. We will indict later. We continue to look at facts. The FBI continues to investigate this case, and we may have more charges later. But for now, we have this charge, and we think it's an appropriate one. Yeah. Yes, sir. I have not spoken with the White House. No, nor have I.
Okay, that's an alternative question. My editor wanted me to check. There's some conversation people that believe that they hear Carlos Brown say after the stabbing, that footage, I got that white girl. It's unclear to me if he says that. Are y'all able to confirm he did say that or what he said?
We are still investigating. Obviously, we have the videotape. We have some other evidence as well. Our investigators who are sitting here in the front row are looking at other angles. As Mr. Ferguson said, there is potential for other federal charges. So we'll just let the investigation play out. I can't comment directly on the facts.
Eric.
Yes, sir. I'm curious. You both mentioned the fragility of losing faith in the transit system. There have been a lot of people around this asking whether the transit system has structural flaws. Earlier, you said it's a breakdown in the system. So how does the transit system itself fit into the broader picture of this case?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear something's broken here, and it's probably more than one thing. I think certainly the state justice system has some issues, but I think you're right, the train does too. And we've seen recently people go on the train to report what's going on the train. It's become a mobile homeless shelter. It's an air-conditioned place. There's no one checking tickets. No one's using tickets. And quite frankly, the revenue from the tickets that could be collected could pay for more security on the train. So I do think there's more we could be doing on our train and more we should be doing, but that's not our job. Our job is to prosecute this case. Yes, ma'am.
There's not totally natural fit initially for federal charges. At what point did you get involved, start looking at federal charges, and what made you?
Well, you were first. So, Irina was murdered on the 22nd at about 10 p.m. I learned of the case on the 23rd in the morning. Our team was already in contact with detectives at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. From that day forward, we were in conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office, so we've been talking about this from the get-go. But we pushed a little bit harder when we saw the videotape, right? And that, I didn't see that evidence early on, and horrified like everyone else when I saw it, and as was Mr. Ferguson. everyone was able to get together and come to a charging decision.
And for us, it was a little bit, the act itself doesn't scream federal crime, but when we started to see the effects of that act and we saw the public saying, we're not riding the light rail anymore, we're afraid to go to the park, that's when my mind and my office started saying, there's maybe something more than a single murder here. This might be a federal charge, and we started digging and found this charge. Yes, ma'am.
According to your perspective, this isn't the first incident that's happened in Charlotte Transit. There have been violent offenses on buses as well in the last couple of years. What brought this to that level to get this amount of resources behind this as well?
Yeah, well, we're concerned about the buses too. This is not just about rail, and we're concerned about the streetcar. We're concerned about the special transit vehicles that are used for handicapped individuals. This is a problem
As
with
you
transit,
should
and it's
be.
not just transit. We're concerned about our parks and our streets and our center city, where convention goers go in droves. We're concerned about all of it. It takes a very particular case to get a federal charge, and sometimes, unfortunately, it takes kind of a snowball effect to get those federal charge, and we see that in a lot of our cases. We'll see, a whole lot of robberies before we get a gang case, or a whole lot of drug users before we get a big drug distribution case. Here we saw a lot of little crimes in the transit system that led to one big crime that was on video, and we found a federal charge. So that's how we got here. Yes, ma'am.
Should people feel safe on public transit in Charlotte?
Right now, I don't know. I can't answer that question. I can tell you that it's my goal for people to feel safe on the light rail in Charlotte. I think it's essential to life in our city that people feel safe there. I hope that one day everyone feels safe riding light rail. Right now, I think we need to see changes before people are going to feel safe on light rail. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, and thanks for the question, because federal sentencing is significantly more complicated than sentencing in the state level. So if convicted, and convicting, that would be a conviction by jury of his peers at federal court over here. If convicted, we have a probation office that puts together a fairly lengthy report about that individual defendant. And that process takes about 3 months sometimes. There's a very lengthy report about his background, his prior crimes, his upbringing, anything that a judge would want to look at in sentencing. And then we will ask for a sentence, which I imagine will be a significant sentence in this case, but we don't know yet. And his attorneys will have an opportunity to argue for some other sentence that they think is appropriate. It goes before a federal judge. The federal judge considers that pre-sentence report, considers our argument, considers the defendant's argument, hears from the defendant if he chooses to speak, and issues an appropriate sentence at that time. The death penalty could be considered under this statute. We don't know if that's something we can seek under these facts yet. We're still researching, we're still investigating, but it is available under the statute, yes. Yes, sir.
There's potential for other federal charges to be confirmed, but maybe includes hate crime or racially motivated crime, some sort of thing.
That is you. Looking into, yes. We're looking into every available charge in this case. If we find facts that this was gender motivated or race motivated, we will absolutely bring a federal civil rights charge in this case. If the facts don't show that, we won't. We're only going to bring a charge that the facts support. The investigation's ongoing. We think we very fairly have the facts for this charge, but we continue to look, and we may add charges, and civil rights charges are certainly on the table.
Yeah.
Folks who are watching here on WCNC Plus Live Impact News, we just wanted to let you know as our 4 o'clock newscast is coming up, you can continue to watch this briefing in its entirety as we continue to air this for you live on our secondary channel on WCNC Plus. If you remain here on this platform, you will continue on with our 4 o'clock news as scheduled. But once again, this specific briefing on the response to the cat stabbing on a federal level will continue in just a couple of moments on our secondary channel on WCNC Plus. You can find that by going back to the main console and selecting the second channel that you see on the toolbar at the bottom.
There's no other side to this. There's no politics to this. This is a pure and simple federal case. Sure. Good.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can debate that this woman was violently murdered on a train.
You can't.
Director Patel has changed the priorities in the FBI to address violent crime, the scourge to our cities and our country by cartels, by transnational criminal organizations, and by local street gangs. We have put resources to those matters. We anticipate more and more cases to be charged across North Carolina into the violent crime space. We're committed to working this. This is a priority from Washington, and I'm not afraid to say that. And Director Patel will get up there, and he'll, I wish he could be here today, I'm sure he does too, to share the priorities of the FBI. Our job is to conduct investigations. Our job is to put people in handcuffs and turn them over to prosecutors to prosecute. And that's what we're going to do. That's what I have 200 agents in this state working full-time to keep our streets safe.
President, just wanted to ask,
Yep.
you've seen in state court how long some of these cases involving mental health disorder forensic evaluations can take. How does that play in federal court, and do you find that being a hurdle in this case?
So, and I cannot say that will be an issue in this case or not. We don't know if there will be some sort of mental competency issue here or not. There is a process in federal court for that. Generally, a defendant sent for an evaluation. That evaluation can vary in time. We've seen it take a year in some cases, depending on the level of treatment needed, the level of evaluation. Sometimes psychiatrists need some time to get to know a patient before they can evaluate them. There's all sorts of variables, but we have had cases where that has happened, and ultimately a judge will decide if he is competent to stand trial or not. But one thing is for sure, this person cannot be allowed on the streets. He cannot be allowed on our trains. So whether he is involuntarily committed or he is behind bars for a violent act, he should not be on the streets of Charlotte. Yeah, so it's, and obviously we want this case to go as fast as possible to bring justice for the victim's family. That is most likely to be separate tracks because the state system and federal system have different standards, different legal standards, different processes they go through. I've called the district attorney about this case. We're going to work out the best way for the victims to get this to go forward, whether that's federal going first, state going first, some sort of parallel pass. We'll have to figure it out, but there are definitely challenges to that. And generally when we bring a federal charge, the state charges are dropped. But this is a case where we have a first-degree murder charge, and we're supplementing with a federal charge, which I think tells you a little bit about the state system, that we can't trust that a first-degree murder charge is going to take someone off the streets for as long as we need them off the streets. We have to supplement with a federal charge. Thank you. I really appreciate you covering this. Thank you.
All right, folks,
Okay, and
you're
that's
listening
it.
here to this briefing from Charlotte, North Carolina, announcement of an additional.
That was it for now. I'll try to come back with some more updates on this and more updates on Takara Thompson and many different other things that I want to cover as well. So with that being said, like, share, subscribe. See y'all in the next one. Peace.